When I came out of surgery, my husband told me we were in debt and had to sell my jewelry. Months later, I saw his sister wearing it at a party. It looked better on her anyway, he said. I went home in silence, then opened the hidden appraisal report I'd filed months before, and when I called the police, I had a full hysterectomy last year. I was 43, and it wasn't optional. Years of problems, pain, and finally a scary test result forced my hand. It broke me in ways I still can't describe. No kids, no chance of kids, and a long recovery ahead. My husband, Eric, had known this was coming. We talked about it for months. He didn't seem to care either way. He dropped me off at NYU Langone like he was taking the car in for service. Said, "You'll be fine, babe. Call me when you're up." No hand-holding. No waiting around. The surgery went fine, at least physically. I came out groggy and nauseous, hooked up to a drip. I remember looking at the clock and realizing it was dark out. No Eric. Just a nurse telling me I'd been under longer than expected. He finally showed up around 9 p.m. He had that same blank expression he always wore when something was wrong, and he didn't want to deal with it. He sat down next to my bed and said, "We need to talk." I still remember the sting in my stomach, and it wasn't from the stitches. He told me we were in financial trouble. Said he'd made a few mistakes with the business, some bad investments that went south. The mortgage was behind, credit cards were maxed. "We had to sell some things," he said. "I sold your jewelry." I just stared at him. That jewelry wasn't from him. Most of it I had before I ever knew his name. My mother's pendant. My grandmother's earrings. Pieces I saved for when I worked 16-hour shifts back at Mount Sinai. He knew how much it all meant to me. I couldn't cry. I couldn't even speak. I just laid there, numb. He kissed my forehead and said, "I'll pick you up Friday." And then he left. My sister came to stay with me when I got home. She cooked, cleaned, helped me shower. Eric said he was busy fixing things. He stopped sleeping in our bed. Said he needed to focus and couldn't be around the stress. For weeks, I tried to convince myself it was all temporary. That he was overwhelmed. That he'd make it right. But I knew something was off. What Eric didn't know, what he never even asked about, was that 3 months before surgery, I had quietly taken every piece of important jewelry to a high-end appraiser in Manhattan. I did it on a whim, almost like something inside me knew. Edelstein and Company, right off Madison Avenue. The woman there spent almost 2 hours with me. Took photos. Documented every detail. I picked up the report a week later. I scanned the documents, saved them to a private folder on my laptop, and emailed a backup to myself with a subject line, "Project Notes." Just in case. Then I forgot about it. Fast forward to October. Eric insisted we go to some fundraiser for a client's firm out in Brooklyn Heights. I didn't want to go. We hadn't had a real conversation in months. But I went anyway. The second we walked in, I saw her, Rachel, Eric's sister. She was wearing my sapphire tennis bracelet. I recognized it instantly. A soft blue line of perfectly matched stones, set in white gold. I knew every detail. There was a tiny scuff on the clasp from when I dropped it once on the subway. I stood there frozen, watching her laugh with a group of women like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I walked over." Smiled. Asked about it. "Oh, this," she said, flashing it. "Eric gave it to me for my birthday. Isn't it stunning?" I turned to him. He shrugged. It looked better on her anyway. I didn't say a word. I left the party without a goodbye. When I got home, I went straight to my computer. Opened the folder. Pulled up the appraisal. It was the same bracelet. No question. And it wasn't the only piece. A week later, I saw a Facebook post from Rachel at some brunch in Soho, with her wrist resting on a mimosa glass. She was wearing my mother's ruby pendant, the one my mom gave me when she found out I got into nursing school. I checked the photos. Same chain. Same setting. A deep red oval stone with a tiny diamond above it. That was it. I printed everything. Photos, appraisals, screenshots. I made a full list of what was missing. 11 items in total. The next morning, I walked into the 19th precinct and filed a police report for theft. And that was just the beginning. The officer at the precinct looked at me like I was overreacting. I guess to them it was just another domestic squabble over money or stuff. But when I showed the appraisal reports and pointed out the names, my name on the insurance, not Eric's, they started taking me seriously. They asked if I had proof he took it without permission. I told them it was never his to sell. I never agreed to any sale. I never signed anything. And I had pictures, timestamp photos of me wearing that bracelet and pendant at past events. Plus, I had the email from Edelstein and Company with the appraisal, dated months before my surgery. It was all documented. They took it down as a theft case. Because it was. A week later, a detective called me. He said the address listed for one of the sales was not a jeweler or a consignment shop. It was Rachel's apartment in Williamsburg. That's when I knew for sure. He hadn't sold anything. He'd given it away. Lied to my face in a hospital bed while I was recovering from having my body torn open. I confronted him that night. Sat on the couch with the documents laid out in front of me. You lied, I said. You didn't sell the jewelry. You gave it to your sister. He didn't deny it, just leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. She needed help, he said. She's been through a lot. She lost her job, and I thought the least I could do. I cut him off. You stole from me. That was my inheritance. My family. You gave it away like it was nothing. She's family too, he snapped back. No. I'm your wife. Or I was. That was the last real conversation we had in that house. I packed a suitcase and stayed with my sister for a while. Eric kept texting, saying I was overreacting, that I didn't understand what Rachel had been going through. He even tried to guilt me about my surgery, said I'd changed afterward, like I was the one who'd broken something between us. 3 weeks after the police report was filed, Rachel posted a picture of herself at a holiday party. She was wearing my grandmother's diamond earrings. The same earrings I wore on our wedding day. I forwarded the picture to the detective with a one-line note, item number 6 on the list. That same week, the detective called again. He said the case was moving forward. Rachel had been contacted and claimed the jewelry was a gift from Eric. But she couldn't prove ownership, couldn't produce receipts. And once she realized it was being taken seriously, she got scared. That's when the real panic started. Eric showed up at my sister's house, uninvited. Banged on the door until her husband came out and told him to leave. He started sending long emails, blaming me for dragging the family through hell. Saying I was trying to ruin him, that if I didn't drop it, it would get ugly. It already was ugly. Then I got a call from the detective again. There was a new twist. Turns out Eric had taken out a loan against the remaining jewelry before handing the rest to Rachel. He used my mother's engagement ring, something I had tucked away in a locked drawer, as collateral at a high-interest lender downtown. It was now technically being held as part of a defaulted loan. He'd forged my signature on the agreement. Forgery, theft, fraud. The detective asked if I wanted to press forward. I said yes. He said they'd need to collect statements and possibly issue a warrant. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just about jewelry anymore. It was about watching someone I trusted slowly turn into a stranger and realizing too late how long they'd been lying. And now I was going to bring it all out into the light. The first court summons was for Eric. Fraud and theft. The officer said it would likely stay civil unless they found more. I knew he'd try to spin it as a misunderstanding, like he always did. But he didn't count on one thing, Rachel cracking. I got a call from the detective a few days before Christmas. He sounded surprised. Rachel wants to talk, he said. She asked for a recorded interview. She brought a lawyer. I sat in my sister's kitchen shaking while he told me what she'd said. Rachel admitted Eric told her the jewelry was left behind and that I had agreed to let it go. She said she had no idea I'd filed anything or that it was insured. She also said something else. Eric told her I wouldn't be around much longer. I asked the detective what that meant. He paused. Then said, "She says he made it sound like your health was worse than it was, that you might not make it out of surgery. He told her he was preparing for life after you." I almost dropped the phone. He wasn't just giving my things away, he was planning for me to not come home at all. And he used that to justify stealing from me. I didn't cry. I just sat in silence. That night, I logged into our joint bank account, something I'd been too afraid to do for months. The balance was lower than I thought. But what stood out were the transfers. 3 months before my surgery, Eric had started moving money. Small amounts. $300 here. $600 there. All to an account under a different name. I cross-checked the routing number. It was a woman named Miranda. Not Rachel. Not a family member. I didn't know a Miranda. I called the bank the next day and asked for help verifying the name. After some back and forth, they confirmed she had co-signed on a business account with Eric under a brand new LLC. Mech Consulting. I Googled it. It didn't exist in any real way. No website. No clients. Just a shell. That's when it hit me. He hadn't just lied to me and Rachel. He'd been funneling our money somewhere else, under a fake business, with a woman I'd never heard of. And the transfers started before the surgery. I printed everything. Every line of the bank statement. Every dollar that disappeared. Then I called the detective again. He said this changed everything. There was now enough evidence to investigate for wire fraud and financial abuse. They'd open a separate case. And since the jewelry was insured in my name only, I could also file a claim against him for insurance fraud if he tried to report anything missing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that one sentence Rachel said. He made it sound like you wouldn't be around much longer. I got up, went to the locked cabinet where I kept old files, and I pulled out the last thing I never wanted to look at, my updated will and healthcare proxy forms from before the surgery. My lawyer had helped me put them together just in case something went wrong. I flipped through, and there it was. In the copy I had, my sister was listed as my healthcare proxy and executor. But in the version Eric submitted to the hospital, his name was on it. He had switched the documents. Somehow. And signed them. I sat there, holding both copies. My stomach in knots. He was preparing for me to die. And if I had, he would have walked away with everything. After I found the switched documents, I went cold. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I made a plan. The next morning, I went to my lawyer's office with the originals. I showed him everything. My copy with my sister's name, the copy Eric gave the hospital with his. The handwriting was forged. The signatures weren't mine. He compared them to what I had on file from when we signed legal forms years back. This isn't just fraud, he said. If something had happened to you in surgery, this could have been attempted murder by proxy. That shook me. I'd spent months thinking Eric was just careless, selfish, maybe manipulative. But this was deliberate. Premeditated. He expected me not to come home. And if I hadn't, he'd have inherited everything under a fake will, with no one the wiser. He made one mistake. He underestimated me. Over the next month, we built the case. I handed over every email, every text, every transfer. We subpoenaed the bank for the other account, the one with Miranda. Turns out she was 27, worked at a boutique Eric consulted for, and had no clue he was married. He told her I'd died of cancer, showed her a photo of me when I was bald from a medical trial, and said it was my final days. She gave a statement willingly. Even gave them the address of the apartment Eric was secretly paying for. He'd rented it under Mech Consulting. The police got the warrant 2 weeks later. They arrested him at that apartment. He was in bed with Miranda when they came in. Rachel wasn't there, but her statement had helped trigger the final charge. He was booked for grand larceny, forgery, wire fraud, identity theft, insurance fraud, and under state law, the forged legal documents could qualify for attempted abuse of a vulnerable adult. It wouldn't be easy to prove, but it painted the full picture. I sat in court 3 times. He wouldn't look at me. Rachel showed up once, in a dark coat, sat in the back. She mouthed, "I'm sorry," when I glanced at her. I nodded, but that's all she gets from me. Miranda was allowed to testify, by video. She cried the whole time. She said she never would have accepted a dime if she knew. She even returned a few of the gifts he bought her, bags, jewelry, the same fake generosity he used on all of us. The court found Eric guilty of fraud, forgery, and theft. He got 7 years. Not enough, but it was something. I filed for divorce the day after his sentencing. I had the papers ready before the verdict. The insurance company reimbursed most of the jewelry's value after I showed proof of loss and ownership. Rachel gave back 4 pieces, including the bracelet. She didn't even ask for a receipt. I told her to keep the rest. Let her wear the damage like a necklace. As for the house, I sold it. I moved into a smaller condo closer to my sister. I went back to part-time nursing once I was well enough. The physical scars from surgery healed. The others are slower. But I'm not bitter. I learned something. I survived someone who looked me in the eye and lied while planning my exit. I lived. He's the one who lost everything. The best revenge? I'm still here. And he's behind bars, exactly where he belongs.